Hello and welcome to the course. This course is all about Linux security, about firewalls. We'll demonstrate how a Linux computer can be hacked. So we'll demonstrate two different ways. Now, it's not a hacking course, so we'll not go into all the details of the hacking tools and how the process works, but you'll have a general idea of the mistakes that the user will do, and also how you can monitor, so how you can find out if is going on your network, if there is any suspicious connection, but also catch the hacker in the process. So after doing this course, you should be able to boost your Linux security, and you might be able to prevent hackers from gaining access to your system using these methods depending on the skills of the hacker. But we'll also go into some firewalls, some less known firewall but really powerful application level firewall and protocol level firewalls. Now, you might not know the differences yet, but it will start to get more familiar through the course. It contains some example demonstrations of hacks, and you'll also find out how you can detect them and block them. So, if you're excited as me, let's get into it. Hello and welcome back. So, in this video we'll emphasize the importance of network security, host security, and we'll demonstrate the risk associated with it. So, I'll be showcasing a commonly exploited vulnerability called a reverse shell. Let's dive in. So, network security is vital for protecting your computer system, regardless of whether you use Linux, Windows, Mac, or any other system. With the increasing number of cyber attacks, it's very important to understand how you can secure your network. A compromised network or a hacked network can have many severe consequences, like data theft, identity theft, financial damage, reputation damage, and so on. So it's important to have network security. But at the same time, it can be quite challenging. For example, you might think that you use Linux, and because you use Linux, you are secure. That really depends on how you use Linux. So let me demonstrate here. We'll start a terminal. And in the File Explorer, we downloaded a program. So in the downloads directory, we downloaded a program. So it can be a bash script, it can be any program you install or download from the internet. Now, of course, there's multiple ways that this attack could happen, but let's say you download and run a program. So we go to the downloads directory, and as any Linux user, you make it executable. And then you might just run that batch script or that program and say, hey, it doesn't seem to be doing anything. But while you did so, what happens in the background is that you have complete access over the victim's computer now. So we have a shell called the interpreter shell. You'll see here the special type of shell. We enlarge this a bit. And now we can do all kinds of things. We can play audio, we can start listening to the microphone, we can start a webcam chat, we can start and shop programs, we can drop into a system shell. There's a lot of things that we can do now. Basically, we have complete control on the user level, in this case Frank. In the computer, we can upload files, we can make directories, download files. We have complete control basically on user level, so not on administrator level, but on user level. So let's say we list the files in the directory, and you'll see, okay, those are the files on the victim's computer. So if I go to the downloads directory, you'll see those are exactly the same files. If I check the system, okay, I can't use that command. You can drop into a bash in a shell. So with the shell command, and you'll see now we have a basic shell. We can check, and you'll see we are inside the Ubuntu system, and we can download and upload files. For example, let's say we download. Let's first exit this shell. Download hello.txt. So now we downloaded this file onto our computer. You'll see I downloaded that file. You might want to upload another file. So let's say virus or whatever. We can now upload that. So we have complete access to the victim's computer because they made one simple mistake, which was to run a program from the internet. And now we can completely control the user's computer. So this demonstration serves as a reminder that without proper network security, without firewall and other security measures, Linux may be just as vulnerable as Windows, Mac, or any of the other computer systems. So you might have mitigated this attack if you were running a firewall. A firewall checks on the network level what connections are happening. So if there was a network connection, outgoing network connection, in this case from the victim's computer to the attacker's computer, then it might have stopped that attack, because then you can decide if that program should be allowed to connect to the network or not. So a robust firewall can help you to stop this kind of attacks. Of course, there's a lot more to network security and computer security, but in this course we'll focus specifically on network security so that you might stop this kind of attacks. So by following the measures in this course, you will increase your security and reduce the risk with these kind of threats. Now, of course, this doesn't cover all threats. There's many possible threats that attackers and hackers will use to gain access to your computer or do malicious things. But the network level is the most popular one because everybody uses the internet. So it's a very big target for hackers. It can be on the same network, it can be on the internet, but basically the same principles apply. And a firewall can really help you out to block these kind of attacks. So network security should be a top priority for any individual, for any person, because of these kind of risks. One simple click and your computer can be hacked. So to prevent that, you really want network security. So that wraps up this video on the importance of network security. I'll see you in the next videos. Welcome back. So in the previous video, we were able to get access into the computer. It was just a demonstration of why you need network security. So we are able to browse around in the file system. How can you detect if anybody is in your system? Because we don't really see anything strange happening here. Well, you can try to investigate with standard Linux commands. So these commands allow you to monitor your traffic or analyze your network traffic. So let's open a new terminal. Make this a bit more fitting. And let's see if we can find anything. So the first program or command we'll look at is TCP dump. This command allows you to capture and analyze network traffic in real time. So it's like having a digital microscope that examines all the packets flowing through your network interface. Okay, enough talk. Let's just run the program. If you just try to run it like this, it won't work because this program needs to be run as administrator. Administrator is called root in Linux. You'll see I am user Frank. However, we don't need to log out and log in as root. You can run any program as root by typing sudo in front. So that will run the program, in this case TCP dump, as the administrator, and administrator on Linux is called root. So type your password and it will start outputting network traffic, so details of your network traffic. You'll see if I run it, it's outputting all kind of information that is happening right now on the network. So you'll see quite a lot of things happening here. Communication between the PC and the network, but also the hacker's computer, of course. So that's what you can try to find out in this kind of log. See Kali appear here, or maybe some network address that you're not familiar with. If you start watching this kind of information, you'll see network to websites and so on. So this is one of the programs that might give you some indication. There's all kind of options for TCP dump, and to break it, just press Ctrl+C. It will just output all of the network traffic, which might be a bit overwhelming. So another program you can use is netstat. So netstat is a handy command. It provides you information about active network connections on the Linux system. And we have some network connections, so let me move this to the right. You know that we have this network connection right here. The hacker has access into the computer. So we can run the netstat command, and then we'll see the running connections, or the connections that are open, with some additional information. Let me just resize this terminal a bit. So if I press enter, you'll see the connections, and this might be a bit overwhelming, There's a lot of stuff here that we don't need, so we only want to see network connections. So you can add some flags here, and if you add this flag, it will only show the active network connections. So active network connections. Press enter, and now you see the active network connections. And as we enlarge this a bit, you'll see from your computer, so your IP address, you can check that with IPAS. You'll see we have 65. This is the second device. This is our IP address or our network identifier. And you'll see 65, that is us. So this is from the source address to the destination. You'll see a lot of things here, so these are irrelevant. You'll see it's going to 0000, but there is a network connection here. That is payload. So what is this payload? So this is the program that started the malicious connection that gives the hacker access into our computer. So we just discovered this computer has been hacked by using the netstat command. So with this command, we can see there is a reverse shell into our computer. So that is that program payload that we run initially in the download directory. You see payload here. So using the netstat command, you can discover it. It's nice, so you can see that, okay, there is a suspicious connection, but we can't actually block it from here. I mean, we can try to stop the program. We don't know with another programs or what's happening in the background. So it's not really a firewall. It's just like you have a connection, okay, but you don't really have control in that sense. And so with these programs, TCP dump and netstat, you can monitor your network traffic and might look for unusual or suspicious activities. Even capture packets on network packets that are traveling back and forth. So you might discover an intruder, but it's not really blocking it on the moment you want to include, because right now that intruder already has access to our computer. It's already connected. We run the program. We don't have any option to block it beforehand. They are already in the computer, and obviously you want to block that before they are in the computer, and you might be able to achieve that with a firewall. So that's the conclusion of this video. You need a firewall to increase your Linux security, and with these commands, TCP dump and netstat, they are indispensable tools for network analysis and monitoring. I just show you the brief into those commands, but of course there's a lot more options to those tools. But you can use them to check if there's anything going on your system. I'll see you in the next videos. Hello and welcome back. So in the last videos you saw how easy it was to hack a Linux computer and how you might be able to detect suspicious connections. But we didn't really look into the firewalls. Firewalls is like programs that allow you to block and unblock certain connections. So let's jump into one of the most easy firewalls, but not too well known, Portmaster. So we're gonna open a web browser and we're going to a website called saving.io that allows you to install the firewall. So it's a graphical firewall that works on multiple systems. You see here Windows here, but you can also install it for Linux, so either Debian, Ubuntu or Fedora, depending on which of these Linux systems you use. So this is a Ubuntu box, and it comes with a very big graphical interface where you can block outgoing network connections. So I'm gonna download it here, then double click on it, click software install, click open, and you can close this browser, click install. So in case it was too fast, it's saving.io and the program is called Portmaster. So we're gonna install it. Might take a moment to install here. And Portmaster is now installed. So let's start it. We're gonna go to activities, type Portmaster, and you should see this in your results, or it should be startable from your desktop after installing. Then to start the core service, so click on that, type your password, That will start the core service, which can take a moment. And you'll see by default it focuses on privacy. That is the key info there. You can click quick setup. So you might block certain trackers and stuff, malware, as a service, so really malicious stuff. So let's click next. It's possible to set secure DNS. So to get your website URLs, you can choose to encrypt that, scramble those connections. So I'm just gonna go with the default. Finally click finish. Now by default it is not blocking any applications, it's not doing anything. So we go to settings here, you see this little icon, and then we can scroll down and you'll see default network action. So what you want to do is to prompt a question. So then you get those messages like, okay, the portmaster program wants to connect to this IP. You can click to allow or block. In this case, you'll see payload here. Now you might remember what payload was. Indeed, that was the malicious program that we used to gain access into that computer. So payload was what the hacker used, or we started it and it gave the hacker access into the computer. So you'll see portmaster immediately found that, and we can either allow it or block it. Now, if you click to allow it, of course, nothing's gonna happen. So if you click allow, then the hacker can just continue and have fun in your computer. So if you made a mistake by clicking allow, you can click on it and then go to settings and then default action, change to prompt. And for any program here, you can give or deny permission. Now, of course, the challenge is here to know what program is which, because you might have some programs that you're not quite sure if that should be allowed to have network connection or not. But in general, it's better than nothing. It allows you to give certain programs network access and others not, so it really depends. Now, it has many screens here. So this is the main screen. The dashboard, you'll see blocked connections, active connections, apps that are active, so you'll see a list of apps. If there's any malicious app, you should see it in this list. In this case, Code was one of the malicious apps. If we start any program that has a network connection, so let's say we open one, in this case Firefox, that will probably open some network connections. It will appear here a message saying if you want to allow or deny. There we go. Firefox wants to connect. Do you allow or block that? So you can block applications from accessing the internet or the network, which can be good or bad depending on your needs. So obviously a web browser needs to have access to the internet, otherwise you can't use the web browser. But you can do this for any application. Also some system applications like Network Manager. We have Firefox here. Has a lot of connections. If you want to change, you can go to the settings here. You can, for example, always block everything or allow. If you block everything, of course, you are sure that there is no malicious connections, but then you need to allow the applications that you want to connect. So then you would have to allow, for example, Firefox so that you can still use the internet. Another strategy, which might be better, because then you don't really have the option to make a mistake in the settings. But it really depends on your own personal wishes. You can use this to block outgoing and incoming network connections. So the program is called Portmaster, and you can get it from saving.io. It's a basic firewall with graphical interface and application level. So in the next videos, we'll go into some other firewalls, which are for the protocol level. So the communication language can be blocked or unblocked, but not specific applications. So we'll go into some more general firewalls. Hello and welcome back to our firewall security series. So in this video, we're going to dive into a firewall called UFW, the Uncomplicated Firewall. It's a user-friendly tool, but it's completely command line based. That's why I opened the terminal right here. So I'm Frank, and let's take a look. So UFW, short for Uncomplicated Firewall, is designed to make firewall configuration easy on any Linux system. But instead of application level, it's protocol level based. So we can't deny or allow any specific application with that firewall, only protocol. And there are many protocols. Protocols for file transfer called FTP, for remote control, SSH, for email, for time, for graphics, and all kind of different protocols. Now, because Linux is so often used on servers, it makes a lot of sense to do certain protocol level blocking, as opposed to application level blocking that we did before. If you run a server, you might want to block certain protocols, and even if you run a general computer, you might want to block some protocols. For example, remote login, you might not need that, so you can block it. It's called SSH, and with SSH you can log into a computer, any Linux computer, and then remotely control it. Now that's great for system administrators, but for securing your Linux box you might want to disable such kind of protocols. So with UFW you can do that. So first to check if that is installed, so we type sudo UFW, and if it outputs not enough arguments, then obviously it's installed. Otherwise, install it first. So if you use Ubuntu, you can type this command to install it. Otherwise, use whatever package manager you have to install UFW. Then UFW, we need to check if it's enabled. So type this command sudo UFW status to check if the firewall is enabled. Now sudo runs the UFW command as administrator, and we take the status as a parameter because we want to know if it's running. So you'll see if it's running, it will tell you status inactive. You can enable it using the enable parameter. See, it says firewalls active and enabled on startup, and we can check the status again, and we'll tell you that it's active now. Then this firewall works with certain rules and protocols, as you saw before. So you can type sudo UFW, and then you can allow or deny a certain protocol. So let's say we take a look at the protocol list, and let's just remove everything we don't need. For example, this is not an Apple computer and we are not interested in Apple QuickTime. So we can say deny, and then either the name or the number. So you'll see here Apple QuickTime has port number 458. We're just going to disable that. So now it is added, that is now denied. You can check the status and you'll see it's now, that protocol is denied. So you can add, block any you don't want. For example, internet relay chat. Now if you're not familiar with that, you might as well block it, because on most computers that's completely useless. If we check the status, you'll see it's now added to the rules. And you can block any protocol you want using this firewall. For example, you might want to block the remote shell login. Someone can use to remotely log into your computer. You'll see here port 22. So we're gonna add that, we're gonna block that. So if we check the status, now all of those are now blocked. So you can block any protocol completely, incoming and outgoing traffic of that protocol. Now, if you make, you can also allow certain things. So instead of deny, you can also say allow. And for example, maybe you want to allow port 23, then you could type this rule. If you make some mistakes, you can just reset the configuration by typing sudo UFW reset. It will ask you yes or no. Press yes, and then all of your rules are deleted. So if you check the status, it's again inactive, and you can do the process all over again. You made some mistakes. So with this uncomplicated firewall, it's a simple firewall, mostly used on servers instead rather than on the desktop, because on servers it makes a lot of sense to block certain protocols. On the desktop it can also make sense because hackers can also use these protocols sometimes. If you run one or more server applications on your desktop computer, they can use them to gain access to your computer. So I'll show you more about that in the next video. So in the last video, I told you a little bit about protocols, the languages that applications use to communicate. There can be multiple applications that use the same protocol. And we talked about the UFW firewall that can block these languages. So let's take a look here. We have the SSH server installed. You can install it with this command. You can install the SSH server with this command if you want to install it yourself. It's already installed. We can check the status with sudo this command, sudo service SSH status. You'll see it's running on secure shell service. That service allows remote control of the computer, which you can block with UFW, but this is just for demonstration purposes. Why protocols matters even if you use a desktop computer. So on the hacker's computer, what I'll do is scan this target computer. Let's first take a look at the devices in the network. So just do a quick scan for devices in the network, and we found the target computer. They might check for any server applications running on the computer. The program called nmap, so it's checking the target computer. They'll find it's running several things, so those are not blocked by the uncomplicated firewall. It's running an FTP server, it's running an SSH server, and also runs some other stuff there. So those are possible ways that a hacker can get into this system. That's why it's important, even if you're on a desktop computer, to block everything. So the hacker might now want to attack that computer, and it can be done, for example, with a password list. So they might copy that from the word list directory, user share word list. They just copy that to the home directory and extract it. Then they'll have a list of passwords. Now it's quite a large list, of 1 million passwords, so that's a big password list right there. Okay, so they know your network address. You might be on the same computer network, and they know you're running a bunch of server applications on your desktop. So then they might run one of them using, for example, Hydra or any other tool. So with Hydra, they can try to attack your computer with that password list and your username, then the protocol that you didn't block with UFW, and of course your network address, which was this one. Of course, it will be different on your computer. Now it's cracking the SSH service, so they just tried every password in that list. That's a list, in case you're curious. That's a list of 1.4 million passwords, and you'll see it's so many that you can just go through it manually. So it's trying all of those passwords automatically, this tool called Hydra. And then it found the password using that technique. So now they can access whatever service you then have. In this case it's SSH, but they might as well attack one of the other protocols that we found with nmap. So it might be FTP or remote file sharing. So let's say they use SSH now. Now they know the password because they just cracked it with a tool called Hydra. And now they are inside the computer, inside your computer. So in here they can do, it's the same computer as this one, they hacked it. So they can now do whatever they want. That's why it's important to run a firewall, even on the protocol level and not just on the application level. Now what you can do also, of course, it's running a bunch of services here, and you might just disable them. You can say uninstall it, for example, or disable them. So let's say we do this command, sudo service SSH stop, then scan again, and you'll see now that disappears, so the hacker can no longer use SSH servers to attack. Might want to do the same for FTP or any of the others and uninstall them. But alternatively, you can use a firewall like UFW or IP tables or UFW to block those protocols completely, and then a hacker won't be able to attack on those using those protocols either. Hello and welcome back. Now, maybe you like using the terminal, maybe you don't. So for a UFW, there are graphical interfaces. If we open a new terminal, we can install a graphical interface for UFW using the command sudo apt-get install gufw. Type your password, and that will install a graphical interface for the UFW firewall. Now, it takes a moment to start and to install, and then you'll be able to do the same configuration, however, using a graphical interface. So it's much easier if you're familiar with graphical tools rather than command line tools. So we run the firewall, and you'll see now we have a graphical interface. You'll see the status is not running. Turn it on, we can simply turn on the switch. Now the firewall is running. You can allow or deny incoming and outgoing traffic. You can click on rules and then add any rules. For example, click the plus. Select what kind of protocol, for example, TCP, UDP, general communication protocols, what port or service. So it has quite a big interface, but you might prefer this over a more terminal interface. So let's say we want to block port 22, and click deny, direction, both incoming and outgoing, so any remote connection, any SSH connection. We click add, here we type SSH, and either we type a port here or a name. So let's try with SSH. And you'll see let's try port 22. And so you'll see that in the back here, those rules are added. Now we can do that for any protocol we don't want. So let's say we want to block port 439, which might be some QuickTime or whatever. We can add that. And now those is added as well. So we can easily block protocol level. We can easily block all kind of applications on the protocol level using the GUFW interface. And if you want to turn it off, of course, there's an easy switch. A moment to run, but it's very easy. And there are multiple profiles. So you might have a different profile for home, office, and public. There's also some logging here. So you see what's going on, some reporting. And so this, you might prefer this to configure your firewall. It's easier for protocol level configurations. If you're not so familiar with the terminal interface. So that's it for this video.